Hello there. Okay, I think we did the great Bill Shankly yesterday. We'll go now with probably, and this is only my opinion, probably in my eyes, probably the greatest manager of all time. And again, I say that as a Manchester United fan. I say that as a lover, supporter and fan of Sir Alex. But although many will call me for it, I feel I have to pass him over for the great, I call Bill Shankly the great Bill Shankly, the great, very great Brian Clough. I don't think we're ever going to see anybody in management, and I won't in my lifetime, do what Brian Clough did. To win what he's won with two completely unfashionable teams, without the budget of the big spenders in the respective leagues, is just without question just out of this world. To do what he did at Derby was brilliant. It really was. To do what I did at Forest was absolutely sensational. You know, to win a European Cup's unbelievable with Forest, but to win it twice, it's just sensational. And I would suggest he did it with a team in the main, and I'm going to offend some people here that probably played for that team, journeymen. Many of the team were probably just journeymen, but he did absolutely brilliantly. What I love about Cloughie, other than his achievements, were his outspokenness. I'm going to love that because that's me in a nutshell. We differ in that he could be outspoken and say things that were said to purposely rile others, and possibly sometimes said tongue-in-cheek, knowing he didn't really mean them, but he knew it would have the effect. I tend not to do that. I say what I feel, and I'm only hard with somebody if they push me to be hard. If they ask me a proper opinion, you'll get an opinion. If you don't want the truth, don't ask me something, because then I can't tell you what I really think. But he wouldn't lie to you. I wouldn't lie to you. We're the same that way. But what I love about Cloughie, as I say, was his outspokenness, his honesty. I love the way he coached his teams. I love the way he treated his players. I mean, you couldn't treat players like today like he treated them them days. You just would never get away with it. You'd never get away with what Ferguson did with his players. Cloughie was a generation before Ferguson. Times have changed now, and the players and the agents, unfortunately, in the main hold all the power. In days of yore, the Cloughys and the Shanklys and the Busbys and the Fergusons of this world, they held the power. It's shifted completely. But what Cloughie did with the teams he coached was just absolutely fantastic. But what I also loved about Cloughie is he always tried to play proper football. He had a big thing about keep the ball on the grass rather than in the air. He liked quick football. He liked to get the ball up front. He liked quick and good crosses. And in someone like John Robertson, he had a kindred spirit because he was fantastic for him. He liked players to work. He didn't like players to shirk, but by the same token, he didn't like players who cheated. I think I mentioned in a past video, he's actually been known for taking players off for cheating, for falling down, feigning injury. He wouldn't tolerate it at all. And I love that. But I've not much more to say other than I just loved him. Real value for money he was. I read his book of 5 or 6 years ago, and because my memory is so bad, I actually read it again about a year ago accidentally. I thought, I don't think I've read this. As I was reading it, I realised I had. But it was that good, I couldn't put it down, and I read it again. And it was just brilliant. It's just a brilliant book. He was a man that realised the value of family. He loved his wife dearly and his children and his grandchildren. So he was a great father and grandfather, which is great to know. For all, football was a massive passion of his. You know, he put family really high up on his agenda, as you should do. He came as a manager from a great footballing background. His stats as a goal scorer were absolutely sensational. If it wasn't for early injury, he could have done even better. He probably should have had more England caps. He certainly should have been an England manager. How we never is just one of the great mysteries of all time in football. Absolutely great mysteries. It just shows that the lunatics that run the asylum in football for many a year are lunatics. How on earth you could pass Brian Clough over as an England manager when they've never won anything since 1966 and barely look like winning anything is just absolutely beyond belief. And that basically, in a nutshell, is it. That's virtually all I've got to say. What I will add is, many sports fans that see this will know these two stories. I mean, there's millions of stories about Brian Clough out there, absolutely millions of them. But for those that might not have heard many stories, or any stories, I'll give you two. Please go away and look for them on YouTube. I would imagine that would be the platform you'd look on, because they're both fantastic. One is probably the most famous story, the Mark Crossley story. Mark Crossley tells it. He's an ex-goalkeeper. It's about how Mark Crossley... I don't want to give it away. It's a Mark Crossley story about Mark Crossley being in goal and a fine that was accrued, a £50 fine for being in goal. Hopefully you'll find it from that. If I tell you any more, you'll know the story and the punchline before you get to it. But Mark Crossley playing in goal for Brian Clough, that's one thing you want to look for. And the other one is the Dean Saunders transfer. Please listen to that as well. It'll have you laughing all the way through it. If you don't laugh at both stories, call a doctor, because you need a sense of humour transplant. There's something missing there. Anyway, they're both worth listening to. Brian Clough, another absolute superstar. Genius is bandied about too often. Brian Clough was a genius.